Well, hey, everybody. Today we're talking about Grok. Is Grok 3 actually here? Were you on the drop last night? On the East Coast, it happened at 11 p.m. On the West Coast, it happened at 8 p.m. If you're in Europe, it probably happened around 4 a.m. for you. Elon Musk calls it the smartest AI on Earth, but does Grok 3 live up to the hype? So it was a highly anticipated but truncated anticipation window for the drop since they just announced that the drop was going to happen on Saturday and then it happened, or maybe on Sunday, and then it happened Monday night. So it claims to outthink, outperform its competitors, and boasting advanced reasoning and next level intelligence. We will say definitively that Grok 3 is actually here, but so far just for the Plus subscribers. So we're going to dive into the details of this. And honestly, hope some of my co-hosts show up, but if not, I am totally happy to be the person who is talking about this with all of you. You can come join me in the chat, in the YouTube chat. And so let's get started. Hey, yes. So we have Jen, Cisco, and Justin in the chat. Awesome. And Jyunmi has just arrived, which is great. Yes. Thank you. Seems like and Jeff is saying seems like not the smartest as Elon was claiming, but maybe the smartest available. And that could actually be one of the big keys here. Hey, Junmi, great to have you with us. Yeah, Jeff, so what it showed, and we've seen this in the other contexts of when a new model comes out, like what are the scores that it got. So it got when it's secret, right? When it went under the code name of chocolate on LM that arena, where you don't get to pick your models, but to go up against each other when you give it a prompt. It scored the first 1400 on that. 1400 out of what? We don't know, but 1400 is the highest. So now it's 1400 out of 1400, I guess. And that was really interesting, but for me, actually, in this, it is starting to again say, what are we testing when we're testing those things? Like, are we doing an apples to apples kind of thing? Because I think that's really important. Okay, yes, Jen can hear your hero cape flapping from here. Let's let you talk.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was trying to get any last minute news about the Grok release, and then I realized, oh my. So yes, sometimes the blinder goes on when you're in tech mode. I think the things that highlighted in when I was reading about what was going on and catching some of the stream there was just like what you said. Number one, they released all of these benchmark numbers and what the highlights were, the math and the coding and science and things like that. And that's what seems to be the big push amongst the talking points of all the latest releases for AI. It's like, hey, it's great for coding. Hey, we saw from Anthropic that 37% of the usage, well, their numbers anyways, is for coding, and things like that. So I think they're all leaning into those kinds of numbers. But it is a really good question of for the average user or for people getting into AI, what do these benchmarks or metrics mean, right? And uh, what is the evaluation that these tests provide? Um, and one of the things I kind of just broad strokes take a look at it is this isn't new. People like to see some sort of quantification of their results and things like that. If you are in the hardware tech space at all, you're going to see um, you're going to see, oh, this has more flops, or this has a higher a higher cycle rate. There's the megahertz and the gigahertz and all of these kinds of things. And for the most part, it's just used to show, hey, objectively, these are better than a previous version. And so, what does this really tell us about the Grok? Is I think those visual references of just showing that the on these scores, or the scores that they get from these tests, is to show that there's marked improvement over comparative models. Now, that is to be expected. Every time I see a new model come out from a company, the bars are always going to be higher, right? How much higher? I mean, I suppose if it was a 2x, or 50, at least 50%, that would be significant. It's like, oh, this is a new, whatever new technique and whatnot. But with all tech, it's going to be incremental. And, a couple more weeks, we're supposed to get the new Orion or 4.5 from OpenAI, and Anthropic is supposed to be releasing something. So, uh, I think that's how we're going to be getting um, our AI incremental growth is just every month there's just going to be, oh hey, ours is a little better now. Oh hey, we added this new little feature, things like that. So just to keep the hype, you know, not not let it blow out of the out of the sky there, but um, it's two main things my takeaways of what I liked about learning about Grok 3. One, they established what their turnaround time was for iteration, right? They went from 2 to 3 in 8 months. Okay. So it'll be good to see what the baseline is there, and see if that improves with new techniques, such as using distillation, model merging, those kinds of things. So I thought that was a significant piece of news. And then the other one is its accessibility, right? So if Grok 3, with its new search feature showing its reasoning capabilities, um, admittedly, you have to go through an X service to do it. But right now, they're talking about a $30 or $40 for as a premium X, and then $30 for this Super Grok subscription. If it does perform as well or even better than the current offerings, because I don't think I saw an O3 mini comparison specifically, um, then that is the that is the least expensive, or yeah, that is one of the least expensive offerings out there. It's certainly less expensive than the OpenAI offerings.
Right.
Right
It's more
now,
expensive than
did
free,
you
but less expensive
more
than ChatGPT Pro.
GPT Pro? Right, exactly. So, and then I think if you're throwing in Perplexity as a model access option, Perplexity Pro is still 20, right? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. So this is not
This is now
this
middle
is
of the road
significantly
in some ways, right?
road. Yeah, right, exactly. I haven't quite figured out what maybe some specifics of what their strategy is from the business side of things, but being able to offer it to your X Premium certainly helps sell those types of
Well,
accounts.
so it's interesting, right? I mean, I think that we can't ignore that the people who are creating these and developing these models have a different sense of a business use case, right?
Right,
Like Elon doesn't need it to turn a profit. The company may need it to turn a profit, but Elon as the driver of this is not in need. It's not like the company folds if it loses $5 billion over the next year. I'm pulling those numbers out of the ether. I don't
yeah,
know how much money went in and what is potentially coming out. But when you are a billionaire and you have like the enough money for like several lifetimes, I think your sense of the business model is different. And again, we keep coming back to OpenAI and Anthropic to a certain extent of running a different business because they don't have the same kind of deep pockets in the organization, right? Zuckerberg as Meta and Musk as XAI definitely have those. We assume that Google has it, and we assume that Amazon is doing something, right? Bezos certainly has those as well. Although Amazon has been sort of famously much more focused on a business model, even if it didn't change Bezos's life. They are very specific about their business model and have shared a lot about that. So, yeah, Junmi, I think you're right that that the next piece that comes out, so to go from 2 to 3 in 8 months, they're already training 4. We know that. Um, I think that's a very interesting thing, and it is something that we are watching. How fast does it learn, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
other thing that with what, XAI did, again, famously, if you're in the bubble that we're in, is build the biggest cluster, right? Build Colossus, which is down in Tennessee. Um, and they talked a little bit about it. So go to the end of the live stream if you haven't seen it. They talked a little bit about how they solved the problems. So first, you had to get the clusters. That's not a problem for Elon because he can pay cash. I guess. Actually, I'm not sure he's liquid, but whatever. Not a problem for Elon. He has as many clusters as he wants. Um, so he talked about it that they are lining the clusters up, lining the CPUs up on one side of the machine, on one side of the building. Hey, Carl, welcome. Um, and then so they need to connect them. Then they need to cool them, so they line the cooling things up on the other side of the building. So now the GPUs that are heating up are getting cooled from the cooling things on the other side of the building. Then it turns out that when you do all of this and you want it to train, it doesn't do so in like a linear fashion. It does so in like boom and then come down and boom and then come down. So those are power fluctuations. They got generators. The generators didn't want to handle the power fluctuations. So, like, there are a series of things that Elon is referencing in terms of problem solving to get everything online before they even really started to engage in this heavy duty training. The thing that solved that is the generator goes into a Tesla super pack, maybe something like that. It's a Tesla technology that can then smooth out the power fluctuation. And then there were a couple other things. They were really clear that they're giving us sort of the broad strokes of the story in the same way that when you watch Grok 3 thinking, it's telling you broad strokes of its thinking. I mean, it looks pretty detailed, but they're like, no, we haven't given everything away because we don't want anyone to like immediately see what's happening and be able to copy it. So we'll see. Carl, what are your thoughts? I know you were watching it around the same time I was. I tapped
Yeah,
out early because it's East Coast here, and that was a lot.
yeah, that was pretty late. Uh, they went through every single piece. Although I think who had it best was it Ethan Mollick who presented who said that's like they kind of are taking the open AI path where they release but they're kind of vague on a couple things. I haven't actually barely been able to look at it. I think I do have I don't think I can I didn't wasn't able to access it yesterday. There was like I don't know if their server was unavailable, but then I think it was not available in Canada. So I had to VPN in. But I don't think it was available all around. But I think today it is, but I haven't even tested it out. Um, I do want to. test their deep research versus OpenAI's deep research and Perplexities and Google's. I want to see that. Those benchmarks look pretty amazing. So it'd be nice to test it, although I'm not sure outside of benchmarks, would you use it using the API and so on? I'm not sure because it's still
Right.
kind of, you know, and it's kind of a weird time to do it because isn't this week where there's like rumors of Anthropic coming out with theirs, which is pretty
Mhm.
big. And then obviously
Mhm.
whether this week, next week, or the week after, it's 4.5. So all I know is like everything's a full go, and everybody has deep research now.
Right. Well, technically, Grok has deep search. So, just so you know, deep search and deep research and deep pro search and deep, deep searchy re. I like, do you not have other names that you could call things? Or if you're just going to go for the same name, go for the same name, right? Like, everybody's calling it that. But yes, it is deep search with Grok.
So quick question. This is sort of based off of Cisco's comment here about limited availability. Is there? I I don't really use X, and I don't have a premium uh, subscription and all those kinds of things. So, was there any plans? Did you hear about any plans about allowing Grok to be used by um, free users at all? Do they have a free option at all?
Not for Grok 3, but Grok 2 is planned to be open sourced when Grok 3 is fully released and to everybody. Yes. So we don't know what that means. We don't know what fully released means. We don't know what open source means. Is Grok 2 being really open sourced with its weights? I'm guessing not, because one of the
Yeah.
things that XAI is using or pointing to as their kind of uniqueness is how fast their model is able to train. One of the other things about this is that there have been questions about are we nearing a limitation, right? The reasoning has been throw more power, more compute at it with more data and let it cook for a certain amount of time. And uh, um, that is continuing to advance models, right? And people are saying, well, at some point that's going to stop. I, Basically everyone from all of the frontier labs have said, yeah, no, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing a limit at this point. We're still seeing progress. There was pushback that said, hey, why would they tell us anything else, right? Like there's no motivation to go, nah, yeah, you're right, we're gonna start crawling, you better get in now. Like, that's not what's happening. But this is a definitive proof, essentially, that if you put a boatload of H100s together, first 100,000, then that took 122 days, then another 100,000 to make it 200,000, that took 92 days. Um, and in 8 months, baby Grok 3 was born.
Yeah,
That's like
Right.
a reasonable gestation period, actually.
well,
Yeah.
I remember there was a graph that was like it took OpenAI this long and Grok this long
Yeah.
to do it. If you What I've noticed is if you actually go to Grok, it kind of takes a bit from like OpenAI's type model-ish, like not their kind of the UI. Although there have been reports, like I can't even upgrade to Grok 3. Like when I go to Grok, there is it's not apparent for me where I should upgrade to. I don't know how to do that. I just get Grok 2 and that's kind of it. And maybe I'm not looking at it right, or maybe I have to turn on my VPN to do that. Um, there's a couple people that have said like sometimes it's appearing, sometimes it's disappearing. So maybe like within the next couple weeks, there's still like on updating it, rolling it out, whatever it is. Because I think Elon did say that it's like, in this week, it's still it's still research beta. It's still beta, not research beta. So it's like they're
Yeah.
still trying to. I think they're just trying to ensure that it gets out on Thursday or Sunday, and then kind of just
Right.
roll it out. I feel, Junmi, you know this. Like, I kind of feel it's one of those, like, it's a video game that like it's not ready 100%, but they'll put it out
Oh yeah.
anyway.
Early access.
Yeah, early
Absolutely.
access, and then
Yeah.
like they'll patch it until it gets good. So
But it's
Well,
but it's
that I
early
mean
access.
that
Yeah. Go, Jamie.
well, because it's okay. This is the way I look at it, and the video game analogy is a perfect one. All right, so video games, you have early access so that you can support the developers.
yeah,
Um, I do the air quotes because X and Elon doesn't need support; they have the resources already. Uh, but early access gives gives the development cycle an excuse to not already come out with a finished product, right? It's a demand based thing, so people really want to use it. They're on the hype. They want to try it out, right? So that's that entry point, and then they can make improvements and add things on, just like you said.
yeah,
um, but that's just indicative of uh, you know software development. Now it's, let's put out a minimal viable product, and then our users will tell us what's wrong with it, and then we'll fix it as we
yep,
go.
yep,
That's always been a what is the actual true MVP, what is better for the user, those kinds of questions always come up. But I think that's a great example of what they sort of have a controlled release here, because it's because they don't have a free option at all. It's a limited beta release to those who have the Premium
mhm,
Plus subscription, right? Or those who are going to have the Super Grok access. So that's they have better control of what kind of usage, right? And that's something that you're already talking about, Carl. Is like what's off on, and we know that when big releases come in on the OpenAI side, we're every week there's at least one outage time, for a few hours, because something new came out. Everyone's trying to all try it at the same time, and that inevitably causes a conflict there. So nothing new along those lines. I did want to highlight just go back a little bit about the importance of, I think once they do get it up and running, they need to offer a free tier. Every other competitor is offering a free tier, and that's the only way you're going to onboard more people. Unless, and this goes back to that strategy question early on, is if they're trying to keep it as a limited access, then what's the use case? It's not necessarily B2C here. It could just be more B2B options, because it's competitively on the price side, but it isn't an accessibility side of thing. It isn't getting more people to use AI. It's it isn't more adoption, and so that's the thing that I'm trying to figure out is, or is it a planned thing? Like, oh, in 3 months, then we'll have free. We'll, trickle down and all that kind of stuff.
And
So I
so,
think it's.
Jimmy, what
Go
you're
ahead.
calling free would be the current model. So it doesn't, like, Grok 2 being open sourced doesn't count as free for you, or will it count when it is released?
If it's open source, that's an open source option, but it isn't the latest model. It isn't a free access, right? Even OpenAI, you have limited. It's limited, but you can try it. You can use it. So I think in the terms of the idea that AI is supposed to be democratizing, it's supposed to enable people to do more by themselves, and the whole concept of the $1 billion one person evaluation company, how does that how is that accessible for people who weren't already further along in the game and things like that? So um, I think it's important that we look at, and one of the reasons DeepSeek R1 was so important is because it's open source, everybody does really have access to it to a certain extent. There's still a equality and access to technology gap there as well. But by having that as the basis, right, we can give more opportunities or have lower the bar for entry, and keep our eye on the overall experience because we know that's going to be important, especially as things speed up. You were just talking about what the time scale, it's shortening and shortening and shortening until we'll have a completely new evolved model once a month, and it doesn't become that anymore. OpenAI is already making moves to make it a contained and complete experience. You're not picking models anymore. They're just announcing, oh, this is a special model for this is a special model for this is our reasonings, and all those kinds of things, because it's all being wrapped up and weaved together. So then it just becomes this is the OpenAI experience. This is the XAI experience. This is the Anthropic experience. So yeah, I I think they totally are in early access. This is an alpha, maybe beta, limited beta release, Carl. I think
Oh,
that's a really good way to look at it. Yeah.
yeah, because I think they also talked about voice mode, right? So I think they actually closed um the live stream with like a small little preview of it, and it was really interesting, and then closed. So they're still rolling out a bunch of things. I'm curious, what is the user base of Grok, and then how they plan to, like, if you looked at use cases. Okay, so yesterday the live stream to me. Okay, so like, okay, they got the benchmarks, but then what about use cases, right? Because I think when you listen to um, OpenAI's presentation, there's use cases. When you look at Google Gemini, their blog has use cases beyond just math and STEM. So there's use cases. So is Grok's target just people in the community and people on X? Because you've got the same people, promoting, the AI influencers and folks who talk about AI a lot. They're obviously going to promote it, but, and you got the YouTubers coming, you got social coming and all that. But what will you actually switch? Would You'll try it maybe, but will you actually, will this increase their user base, or is this just, we got to keep up with everybody, so we're going to be out ahead and for as
Yeah,
long as we
I,
possibly.
I think that's a really good question to highlight, because that goes back to that limited access, right? It's whoever's already on the platform, who already
Yes.
has the
Yes.
premium subscribers.
Yes.
They're the ones who are going to use it. They're going to use it in that. I think the use cases, they're going to be using it in that social media aspect,
Yep.
right? They If you're paying for the premium subscription, you are deep into the X
Yep.
slash Twitter ecosystem, right? So you're just gonna try to absorb more or use more of the features there. I think that's the primary use case. Outside of that, I think that's where that B2B strategy comes from. Grok's going to be used in anything that's vertical integration. I think Justin mentioned as a potential to be used in their Optimus robots, or Elon's
Yep.
Optimus robots.
Yep.
Absolutely, right? We've already seen how AI or LLMs are being used to further that aspect of embodied AI. You're going to see it in Tesla. You're going to see it on all of its touch points of where he can integrate it, because it makes it, it just makes it easier, cheaper, and faster for him. I'm sure this is part of the larger plan to colonize Mars. We'll go into a different show
Yeah.
about that. But yeah, having that vertical integration is going to be important. I think what we also might see is data center play, where there's going to be these deals to access Colossus or use Colossus for its resources, those kinds of things. Um, or as a even like Beth, you were talking early on about how they talked about how Colossus was built and that blueprint. That certainly could be a blueprint used to be the data center company. They got that thing up and running in what, 19 months or something like that. And so, we've talked about we're going to need power requirements, we're going to need more data centers, and all along those lines. That's certainly a play there. Elon's not part of the $500 billion super center in Abilene. So what's his play going to be there? So, but if we were going to go back to what is our day-to-day use case, I think it's just going to be those users. And I think it might be a smart play for Grok development specifically, or XAI development specifically, to keep it to its limited access. You get to control the narrative a little better. You can limit the amount of users, and you can start
Right.
throwing out as more and more benchmarks until that that builds up whatever hype train you need. So that might be the overall strategy. I'm sure there was going to be some, we'll call it standard business use cases that people will plug in, especially with API access and things like that. Um, I think it's going to take us, our sphere of people, to really hammer down and test it out and see what it really fits the best in. Right now, it seems like all these foundational models are really saying, "Hey, we can do everything. We're really good at X, Y, or Z,"
Mhm.
um, and and fitting the right product. And as long as
Well,
there's that kind of competition, I think that'll be good for the end user. Is having that. It's like, yes, there's no moat. I can use anybody's. Is yours a little better in my personal use case? That kind of thing.
so two things about that. The first is that I have seen some use cases asking Grok to summarize um, like Twitter handles, like they had actual Twitter handles of the people, summarize their points on I don't know, technology in Africa, let's just say. But Grok does have access to the full Twitter um, data, right? And really early on, Elon said no, right? Elon removed the access to the data, made the access to it from an API standpoint really expensive, like it's $1,000 for every month or something like that. No surprise, right? Like he is in a unique position to know just how valuable the data was that he bought when he bought Twitter. But so that's one thing. The second piece of this is this is something Paul Reitzer has been saying, and I totally agree. The like I'm better at coding or I am better at reasoning or those sorts of things are starting to be kind of useless. Like I am let's say I am a physician's assistant. These are the tasks that I need to do. What is the best for me, right? Or how much can this model do? Can this model do 40% of the admin assistant job or 40% of the university instructor job, the professor's job, right? Like those sorts of things where we're getting much more specific in terms of the tasks that a job does and which model is better at doing them, or are they all across the board just fine? And these are the set of um, prompts. Like we have found that these prompts do really well to create the syllabus, or those sorts of things. Like the general, like, hey, we're great at reasoning, is not helping, I think, boots on the ground to feel like, oh, okay, I know how this affects me, my job, and my life. So
Sorry about that.
now, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Carl.
Oh, so I'm thinking more about this from the, okay, if ever, like, the pace of change is going really fast, right? And it's interesting what Gwen was saying inside the chat here about in terms of trust. Who do you trust? And I, you know, there right now everyone knows one company for the most part. There's a couple other ones, obviously, and then there's developers who know quite a bit like more. Um, I'm just curious if XAI can skyrocket this as fast as you can. And you saw the benchmarks, right? You saw the reasoning benchmarks. It's 96%, 1400 ELO score. What we're like, what, like I'm loving O3 mini high. And
Yep.
if this thing can even do a little bit better reasoning than O3 mini high, what, like, I'm not sure what that even means anymore. And I keep thinking about, hey, what Jan LeCun was talking about. It's like, what does that mean? Like, where are we headed now? Because like, I think I remember GPT-4 when that was presented, everyone was pretty excited about that. But the scale since then has been, it's slowed a bit and then it just exponentially grew like really, really quickly. So where are we exactly headed when
Yep.
like the reasoning is so ridiculous that, and then the estimated what is the IQ level, and everyone has this. I think two things come to mind. One is not everybody knows what to do with it. Like, most people, like, you're trying to figure out new ways how to do some of this stuff, especially use it for your everyday life, not just math, science, STEM kind of research. Because I think we saw the Anthropic economic like index, I think, and coding obviously in math were way and above beyond. But now I'm starting to see, I think slowly by slow, really slow, some people are starting to say, hey, this deep research thing is actually pretty good,
Hmm.
right? Deep search, deep research, whatever it is, it's getting better and better and better. And it's actually kind of that agent goes out, does stuff, gets your report, analyzes stuff, report. So I'm not sure what is next, right? Because I'm still
Well,
looking at the 5 levels. You have one, reasoning, agents. Like, is everyone going to get excited about innovators now? Like, do they just start creating stuff for us?
yes. But I do think that one of the things that Grok adds that may actually like get to the point where you can like take your base model and turn it into an innovation kind of place or a self-improving kind of place is I think it's a thinking button. Like it's not on the main thing that they've released, but it seems to me when they were talking about it and when they were demoing that there is like a turbo button, right? There's a thing where you can add power to the base model. And I thought it looked like you could add power while it was going,
Yes.
which is very interesting.
You have the big brain. You
Right.
have thinking. I think they had deep research or deep search, then thinking, and then big brain.
Thing,
Okay.
It was
big brain.
one
Yeah.
after the other. So like
Yeah.
higher, 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 even higher,
Right.
which is kind of crazy.
Well,
And when you
that
and when
ability
you
to
look at their
control how
graphs,
much time it
yeah.
is thinking is super important. I liked that, because a lot of the
Because
times, just like if I'm using O3 or O1, right? Any other reasoning model, I would like it to go deeper than perhaps I put in the prompt, right? And so I don't know if it's just a shortcut or just to provide more in-depth reasoning. I think being able to control that on a slider is an interesting
right.
feature, and I think that might be more useful down the line.
Well, right now, you can see the thinking process that the reasoning models sort of across the board show you a little bit of their thinking process. Um, this is a place where the fact that it's thinking faster is less helpful, right?
Mhm.
Like, you're now thinking so fast, I can't engage with it. But I can actually see, right? Like, oh, no, I want to be able to hit pause, right? Or turbo, like use more thinking prowess here because I can see based on what you're saying to me about how you're thinking that this isn't going well, and so I want to be able to intervene or engage in that. Not a super surprise for me because one of my favorite uses is for the whatever model I'm using to ask me questions so that we can collaborate together. And Carl, because I am the innovator and I am comfortable with that. And then let the AI, like between the two of us, we can accomplish amazing things. Um, yeah, and but we are moving into a thing where things are going so fast that not only do I not have a pause button to be able to say, "Okay, let's interact a little bit here," I may not even see it anymore, right? It's going too fast in that context. So where are we just observers now? Like monkey fingers, but now we're just like sitting back and saying,
So
"Wow."
here's, and maybe this is for another topic. I was some, oh, I don't know where I heard this from, but it's very interesting. Somebody said it, and it was about the what happens when, like, I think Sam Altman said this, his deep research, OpenAI's deep research, it's a 1%, 5%, whatever of economic work. So now you have, so I think like school is, oh, how do you develop the critical thinking, especially when you're so tempted to have this thing think for you, right? It's like, okay, I need you to accomplish this task, whatever that task is. Usually write a paper, but sometimes it's a project. So you have to actually think through. It's like, hey, how would I do this? What are the steps that I would do? What are the things? But if you have a PhD level, hey, this is the task, it like literally gives you that answer. Then take it to the workforce, junior, any kind of entry level position, especially white collar, anything. What happens when we don't need that? But then people need to, when you first started your first job, you kind of were not good, but you had to fail a bunch of times. You had to learn from people. You had to go out, experience it, and be like, oh, this doesn't work. This worked, and that's how you got experience. You got better and better and better. So what? It's a fundamental shift now when you have something that can do that. So is it now, how, like, what's the change in people? Like, how do you adapt to that? Like, is it, I'm still finding it challenging to figure out how to apply these things to everyday life, like
Mhm.
everyday work. When I see
Mm.
clients and they talk, there's still now it's a different level of problem solving. How do I apply this to this? How do I apply it? But as it gets better, do I, like, is it just about me telling, hey, this is the problem, go fix it, go execute it? Oh, it was Gianluca Demoro who said, what happens, because humans are kind of ingrained to try to solve a problem, but if you don't have any problems to solve, are you going to make up new problems? Is AI going to create new problems for us? Maybe it will, but I think that's where kind of I'm going. It's like, the fundamental shift of everything now is, yeah, what are we going to be focused on that AI can do? Or I think maybe the positive or the optimistic folks, and maybe this is where the big ideas that Andre Karpathy, Sam Altman, Ilya Sutskever was talking, was like, because we don't have to focus on this kind of stuff anymore, we can like, it, do we have another level of our thinking, then now we can really focus on really big new things to think about, that we, just as a
Right.
species and humans, never had time to, because we had to figure all this other stuff out. But if AI figures all that stuff out, do we now think of new, crazy new things that we were never able to do?
Right.
Right.
And that
Or
that
examine our process there. Sorry, go ahead, Beth.
Yes.
no, thanks. And that is one of the pushbacks, right? So maybe we would have been thinking about things like alignment before it got super powerful. I mean, not that they haven't been thinking about it the whole time. Maybe we would have like gotten a little further in having confidence about alignment. And Carl,
Mm.
while you were asking the question, it sounded to me almost like the paperclip problem, right? So the paperclip problem is a human says to an AI, we need to make the maximum number of paperclips that are possible within the resources on Earth. And at some point, it runs out of iron, except there's iron in our human bodies, and it does that process. It says,
Mhm.
okay, so now we're just going to kill the humans to get the paperclips. This sounds to me a little like we're saying, oh, maybe sometime in the future, the paperclip problem will not be a human idea, but an AI idea. Is that the innovation, right? Is the if the like, hey, so we would like to do really efficient power usage on Earth and a couple other things, and on a bunch of those models, if there were fewer humans, that would be better. But that is not what we're talking about in terms of alignment. I'm also concerned that like humans don't have alignment, right? Like
Yeah.
it it's not like please align with what humanity is the highest goal for humanity, because that's different from human to human.
Right, right. And I think this goes to understanding or at least accepting how we innovate, right?
Right.
Or like Carl was touching upon this a little bit, is the analogy I like to use is this where AI is going is sort of the moment of when we innovated agriculture as a species,
Oh
right?
yeah.
We went from the everyday problem was finding enough food for everybody and a warm place to sleep and a protected shelter, and that's what consumed the vast majority of the day. Then agriculture was invented. We didn't need to roam around anymore. We could grow more food and have it stored. We didn't have to worry about winter. We could build better shelters. We could spend more time inventing or creating,
Mhm.
right? This is the same kind of thing to me, where we've created this tool that can take care of what the current modern day problems are, does free up more times for us to get creative. But the caveat is the way we invent technology is we see if we can do it first, and then we ask ourselves if we should do it. And that has gotten some great progress over the last few thousand years, but but it also creates more problems for us because we don't normally take that
Right.
extra step, right? And so, to answer your question of like the school example is, where does the critical thinking get taught? How does it get implemented? Right? It gets implemented in the teaching portion, right? A lot of our education right now is rote memorization. Here's the
Mhm.
textbook, read it,
Mhm.
mnemonics, remember
Yeah.
the facts and figures. And what isn't concentrated at all is we're now in the classroom. Now we're going to have in depth discussion about what the content was. So the AI is great at doing all the filler homework. We don't need to concentrate on that because that's the part that it's doing. The reason why it did this, the reason why it's thinking like this, the reason why the information is important, or what the contextual information is important. And those skills, those soft skills, are what's important for learning, so that that's human alignment, then that we can take to the additional tools that we're building up and things like that. So it's all of these things affect so many different points in life. it I don't think you can approach it as, I'm going to solve problem A, I'm going to solve problem 37. It's got to be a more holistic or systemic approach to how you're doing it overall. And that's the only way that you can really see how much of an impact it's going to be. Because if we're saying, oh, we want better AI to solve more problems, so we're going to then need big data centers to do that. And those big data centers are going to need additional power. So right now, our technology is, nuclear generated power, which is just a fancy steam engine. But and then we're going to need access to water for that power, and then we're going to have these natural resources protected, and we're going to have to build more X, Y, and Z, and it just keeps going on and on and on. But I don't think anyone's saying, okay, well, what's the end result of what all of this technology is going to build? How does this help raise humanity up? How does it solve humanity issues? And I think that's going to be the big alignment, is the human alignment side. Like you said, Beth, we're not aligned as a species of what we want to accomplish. So how can we translate that to the tools that we create? That might be a little more philosophical than I intended to get into, but the practical application, what these questions are brought up, is how do we analyze what's happening to us? And I can tell you for myself, the last couple of months has been bewildering. There's just so much stuff happening in every aspect of life. AI is just one more aspect of that. And we may have to try and start by picking a couple of things and focusing it on that to get the answers that we're really looking for.
So, Carl,
Okay, I'll stop talking.
thanks. No, I really appreciate it, Jimmy. Carl, it looked like you were having some thoughts in that, and it looks like we're sort of moving into time. So, do you have like final wrap up kind of thoughts?
All this reminds me of is the whole concept of essentially Star Trek. Because I remember growing up and that was the concept, right? We have now gone past all the items of money, food, that has now been taken away. And that allows people, I think that would be the most optimistic thing. That would be an example. It's like if you remove all that stuff, if you have solved world hunger, if you have solved climate change, if you have solved housing, all those things that AI should help you solve, then as humanity as a whole, then you can start thinking of bigger and better things than that stuff. So that would be the most optimistic, maybe parallel or example that what AI should be able to enable people to do, because some things are too difficult to solve. So you've increased longevity, you've solved major health problems. Now it's just, hey, what what do people want to think of next?
Mm-hmm. Wow. So this seems like a great opportunity to say sometimes we also do a sci-fi AI show, and we think those are going to come back because yes, these are the questions. These are the core questions of sort of the, if not immediate future, the future that we can kind of see. Like we may be able to throw a skipping stone and skip to that future, not very far away. Um, and I mean right, everything comes back to a level of philosophy after we get done with the math. I mean that seems like the core of the liberal arts education. Do you know what happened in the history? Can you frame something about what's coming in the future? We do it mathematically, we communicate it through words or performance. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been a lovely show. Thanks to my co host for coming. I would wrap it up here. We would love to hear your experiences with Grok 3. This chat will stay live, and we'll also publish a video of it later. So if you are seeing this later, tell us what you're thinking in the chat. And tomorrow we have news. And surprisingly, there was more news than just the two things we've talked about this week so far. Who knows? Maybe Anthropic will be dropped by tomorrow. It does seem like a hell of a week. So thank you so much. We hope to see you back tomorrow and for the rest of the week. We do this show for you guys, and it's really lovely when you come and share it with us. And thanks. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Aloha.